I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. There's an old saying by Laurel Thatcher Ulrich that great women are rarely well behaved. And I think about that when I think about Yvette Carnell from BreakingBrown.com, my homegirl, my partner in crime, who I have on the line. How you doing today, Yvette?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I was doing good until suddenly in my email inbox, I'm flooded with all these messages from my friends in the Nation of Islam who are saying, "Oh, I think you need to talk to Sister Yvette because I think she's got some things wrong about the minister, and you work with Yvette Carnell, you need to shut her down." And I got a lot of that backlash, and I said, "What's going on?" So I go on the channel, which is open to you. I
Yeah.
allow you and other people with diverse opinions to express their point of view, and we believe in freedom of speech. So I saw the video that you did on Minister Farrakhan, and I said, "Oh." And so I watched the video, and I said, "You know what?" And as people emailed me, first thing I said was, this is Yvette's opinion, and Yvette is I will stand by Yvette. The day I'm not standing by Yvette, you're gonna have to see me in a casket somewhere because I'm with Yvette till I die in terms of having your back, even when we disagree.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear more about your perspective. So I called you and I said, "Hey, let's get on Skype and let's just talk this out in terms of what's happened since you put up the video, as well as letting me flesh out more of your ideas." So why are you trying to just make my life so hard, man?
Well, actually, I didn't. I knew that there was going to be some pushback from the nation about the video, but I think I underestimated the level of pushback, the level of people who just weren't feeling what I had to say and had no problem with letting me know how they felt, what they felt about me, and who they think, what culture they thought I belonged to, and me being a traitor, and all sorts of mulattoes and Rachel Dolezal. So I didn't anticipate all of that, but that's what I went through with Obama. After, when I criticized Obama, I got called. Rachel Dolezal wasn't around then, so I didn't get called that. But I got called a lot of the similar stuff. So I mean, for me, it was like, oh, I'm home.
Well, it was interesting. I watched the video and and I saw the conversation. I put the video on my wall and I just said, "Look, I want you guys to see this, talk about this. Just try to do it respectfully." And then some people didn't do that. Some people went overboard with name calling and all this stuff. And to me, I just think that if you reduce yourself to calling somebody a name because you don't agree with them, what you're really saying is that they're right and you can't prove them wrong. So you're just gonna call them a name instead. So what I want to see is, I would like for you to kind of elaborate on your video, where you were questioning some things that Minister Farrakhan has said, particularly when he was asking he was looking for 10,000 strong men to stand up for the community, to kind of deal with the police violence, brutality, stuff like that. And you interpreted that to be kind of a call for violence or a call for a race war, that kind of thing. And you were kind of warning against that. So people can understand where you're coming from and hear right from the Carnell's mouth. Tell me, what were you saying in this video? What were you trying to communicate?
Well, he said something when I heard Farrakhan say, we need to rise up and kill those who are killing us. When he said something to that effect, and I think that's an exact quote. When he said that to me, and this is my own interpretation, this is my understanding, that was irresponsible, and I found that as irresponsible, and I thought of that as reckless, because this is the situation that we're in. We're in a situation, sure enough, where black people are being mistreated. We are here. That's where we are right now, where black people are being gunned down in the street and all these other things. So are Native Americans, by the way, and so increasingly are white people without means. But disproportionately, it's black people, and disproportionately, it's Native Americans. Okay, fine. I understand that. But when you tell me, or when you tell black people that we need to rise up and kill those who are killing us, that is to me a call for violence. And what I'm asking is, where is the Nation of Islam going to be in that fight? The Nation of Islam has an infrastructure full of black men, strong black men. We see them all the time when they're with Farrakhan. If you want us to fight, then first of all, you need to lead that fight. The second problem that I would have is that, listen, we all know the problems that are plaguing black people in this country, poor people in this country, in terms of mass incarceration and all of the problems that usually happen to people, that all of the dysfunction that poverty has with it. So you have a lot of boys out here with fathers who are in jail, with mothers who aren't really providing the oversight that's required. And what you're telling them is to go out here and take arms or kill those who are killing us. What I'm telling you is that if somebody acts on that, let's say somebody acts on that, let's say one of these kids out here in the hood, he acts on what Farrakhan said, he ends up dead or in jail. And where is Farrakhan after that happens? That's what I want to know. If you are going to take on the state, which is what you're doing when you take on the police, you're taking on the state. If you're going to take on the state, you better have a lot of things. And one of those things you better have is a plan. And you better tell me where you are in that plan. You can't tell me, Minister Louis Farrakhan, that you are in your, in your home around the corner from Barack Obama while all this is happening. You have to tell me where you're going to be in this fight. And rhetoric isn't enough. So what I basically said was, hey, this is irresponsible. And if you do this, you're going to have a problem. And let me just also say, even with everything that black people face in this country, black people need to take a step back and understand one thing. The one thing we need to understand is that even with everything that's happening, the reason we don't have a revolution going on right now is because, for the most part, black people in this country live better than black people in a lot of other places in the world, right? Even if you go to the ghetto, there's some welfare, there's something there. You may have an awful life, but it's not the same as being in the ghetto in a lot of other countries and being black. So what I'm saying is, take a step back and let's not get involved in this sort of rhetoric right now that involves violence. Let's take a step back and deal with the other measures that we can use to address these problems. I can't hear you at all, boys.
Okay, sorry. All right, sorry about that. Um, I wanted to. I was googling to find the minister's exact words so we can make sure we don't misquote him on this. And I was asking if you were able to hear this because this video auto played on the website that it was on. And I want to give people. I want to encourage people to see what the minister said so you can hear exactly what he said and form your own opinion. I'm not big on the whole propaganda piece where we want to give you your opinion. My goal is to not tell you what to think, but to encourage you to think for yourself. And actually, just so you know, that I'm really sensitive to that topic because I remember when I was attacked by some scholars who misinterpreted everything that I said. Remember that article I wrote where I was encouraging black men to be careful about sleeping around because they get falsely accused of rape, and I had some feminist groups somehow saying that I was saying that I don't know what they were saying exactly. I think they were trying to say that I believe that most women who accuse men of rape are lying. And I said, no, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that black men get falsely accused, and I'm not backing down from that crap. And I got this email or this letter, open letter from scholars, so-called scholars. I don't think they were real scholars. Mark Anthony Neal from Duke was in the group. I'm not sure how scholarly he was being at that moment because in this letter, here's what they did that bothered me. It didn't bother me if they disagreed with me. What bothered me was they disagree with me, but they provided no support or verification or confirmation of their ideas. They did not put one link to the original article so people could hear exactly what I said or read exactly what I wrote. They didn't provide any logical argument to explain, in terms of quoting something I said and saying, this is what you said, this is why we have a problem with it. They just called me names. They just said, you're irresponsible, you're this, you're that. And I said, okay, that's fine. I understand you disagree with me, but where's your evidence? So I think that for yourself, what I want people to be encouraged to consider is that as you speak, even though you're saying something, it sounds like you're what you're saying is not that popular among certain people. I mean, I don't think I've seen too many videos get that many thumbs down. It's being real. But you've laid a conversation on the table that needs to happen. And what I would say is that if somebody disagrees with you, that's fine. But if you run up in here calling this beautiful black woman a bed wench, then we're gonna have a problem. And the people will calling you names like that.
Oh yeah.
That's sexism. That's not cool. You can't do that. You can't. In fact, one of the problems we have in our community is that we don't let strong female voices, rise the way they should. And because we have to deal with that sexism issue. So to me, if you're going to disagree with Yvette, then fine. disagree. I don't agree with you on some of this stuff,
And I
but
don't have a
but
problem with
disagree.
disagree. I don't have a problem with people who don't disagree. You know that. I don't have any problem with anybody disagreeing with me. I don't think that I'm infallible. I don't think that I'm God. I don't think that I'm anything like that. So I welcome, valid criticism of the comments that I've made.
But and I know you do. And so anyway, I know I went on a tangent basically when I was about to read the quote from Minister Farrakhan. It kind of made me think about just sometimes how when attacks become overly politicized, it morphs into this very hyper emotional, very illogical, irrational kind of propaganda kind of thing. It made me reflect on that experience when Mark Anthony Neal and these other scholars wrote this ridiculous letter, because I said, brother, I understand you're disagreeing, but you didn't provide one single link so people could even read what I wrote, which means you didn't want them to hear what I actually said. You wanted them to see your interpretation of what you think of what I said.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, that's bullshit. Excuse my French. So anyway, let's move on. So here's what Farrakhan said. Let's read the quote exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And this may come up this week. Just for the sake of full disclosure, the minister did reach out to me, and I was invited to go and sit and have dinner with the minister and some other people. So if it comes up, it comes up, and I'm okay with the conversation. So here's what he said. He said, I'm looking for 10,000 in the midst of a million, 10,000 fearless men who say death is sweeter than continued life under tyranny. Death is sweeter than continuing to live and bury our children while the white folks give our killers hamburgers. He's talking about Dylan Roof,
Mm-hmm.
the guy that went into the church and who got fed hamburgers when they finally caught him. Death is sweeter than watching us slaughter each other to the joy of a 400-year-old enemy. Death is sweeter. The Quran teaches persecution is worse than slaughter. Then it says retaliation is prescribed in matters of the slain. Retaliation is a prescription from God to calm the breasts of those whose children have been slain. So, if the federal government won't intercede in our affairs, then we must rise up and kill those who kill us. Stalk them and kill them, and let them feel the pain of the death that we are feeling. What do you think about that?
I think that's one of the most reckless quotes by a person who, I mean, by a black leader. I mean, even listen. I remember. Let's be clear about one thing. I remember, Malcolm X saying, the ballot or the bullet. I mean, not that I was there, but I've read about that. We all know about that. We all familiar with that, right? But let's be clear about one thing, black people. We're at a very different space right now than we were when Malcolm X was here. First of all, we're much more integrated. This whole idea that Farrakhan has that we are going to somehow, remove ourselves from white people and create this sort of enclave of black people, it's just not going to happen. Black people have jobs. Black people live in communities. That doesn't mean we live in communities that are all white or are necessarily mixed, but we are a part of America. We are a part of what has built America. We are here. This is just as much ours as it is anyone else's right now. So this idea that we're going to somehow move away and do that sort of thing, that's just, to me, that's just silliness. And when we go back to that, that's a problem for me as well. But my whole thing about what Farrakhan said in that quote was that, first of all, it is a reckless quote to call on people to do that. This is a reckless thing to do, to call on black people to do that, especially when you don't have a plan for how this is going to be done. When you look at, I don't care whether you look at the French Revolution or whether you look at Che Guevara in Cuba, and when you look at Fidel Castro, everybody had a plan. And what it seems like to me is happening is that Farrakhan is doing a lot of talking without having a plan. Now, I will say, people say, well, why would you say that? You don't think the ministers ever done anything good? I'm not saying that. The Nation of Islam has done good things within the black community. But what you're calling for now is taking on the government of the United States of America. You're taking on the state. When you take on the police, you're taking on the state. And that's a very different animal than doing good works in your community. That's going to bring down a foot. That's going to bring a foot down on your neck like you have never seen before. And so I want to know, Farrakhan, if you're calling on, black people to do this, where are you in that fight? Are you risking your life? Are the people in the Nation of Islam risking their life? Are they stalking and hunting these people? Is that what's going to happen? Because it's not right for you to just call on us when you have an infrastructure. The Nation of Islam is an infrastructure which could handle and start this fight if that's what you really want to do. I'm not saying I'm in favor of it, but if that's what you really want to do, you have the infrastructure to do so. You've had the infrastructure to do so for decades. Why haven't you? Why haven't you done it? Why haven't you started it? Why are you just telling me to do it? Or these black people to do it? It doesn't make any sense.
I think those are valid points. I would love to hear, an opposing point of view, and more specifically, I would like for people to respond exactly to what you're saying, as opposed to simply sort of going toward this whole idea that somehow you're out of line because you didn't agree with something the minister said, or or somebody saying something negative about you, or somebody just saying that or talking about redeeming qualities of the minister. I admire the minister for a lot of the reasons that a lot of black men admire the minister, in that black men don't have a whole lot to look up to in this world in terms of authentically strong black men, that can position themselves as elders and leaders in the community. Most of the older black men that I had seen, as a younger black man, they were cowards. They were kissing up to the white man, begging for favors and all this other stuff. And basically, the only formula they could give me for success was, kiss a white man's butt and hope that he gives you a paycheck one day. I couldn't respond to that, and so I think with Farrakhan, I think the attraction of Farrakhan, and I think that this might actually explain some of the emotion people have in response to what Chuck CEO is that it's just a little bit for the same reasons that some women would get really offended if you say something negative about Oprah Winfrey, or even when Whitney Houston died. Just when you mentioned, for example, that Whitney Houston was a drug addict, that her drugs played a big role in her death, people don't want to hear that. And sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes the biggest crime you can commit is just saying something people just don't want to hear. And sometimes the more correct you are, and I'm not saying whether you're correct or incorrect, I think it's in the eye of the beholder, but the more correct you are, the angrier people will get. Because, if you say something that's wrong, I could just say, oh, well, you're wrong, and let me explain why. But if you say something that's right, and I have to hear that, I have this anger, this energy inside of me, this cognitive dissonance that's going to cause me to have a certain reaction, and the best thing I can do sometimes is lash out at you. So I think that what I will say though is when I read the minister's words, I agree with almost every single thing he said. I don't think you have to agree with everything Farrakhan says in order to love and support what they're trying to do with the nation. Two things that come to mind. Number one, I think that an 82-year-old Minister Farrakhan is very different from, say, even a 62 or 52-year-old Farrakhan, right? So you talk about a war of any kind happening, any kind of fighting that occurs. Obviously, he's not going to be in the front lines. He's 80. He's 80-some years old, right? It may be some people disagree with that, but I think if you look at Farrakhan's track record, when he was a younger man, he did get in the mix of situations and do what he had to do to make things happen, whatever that was. But the other thing I'll say is that I think that in terms of just dealing with this police violence and stuff like that, I don't know how I felt about words like stalk them down and kill them. However, what's interesting to me is that it is reflected when you bring up what you said, which is logical in the sense that taking on the state could lead to a lot of death and devastation for the black community. The fact of the matter though is that when our government or when our leading officials get mad, when they attacked us on September 11th, that's exactly what they did. They retaliated. They hunted them down. They stalked them, and they chased them around the world to go and make sure justice was served. And so I think that as a man, and you see your community under siege, any conscientious black man is going to feel like, okay, at what point do I pick up the gun and just say, you know what, I might not make it through this, but I'm not going to let you keep doing this to people I care about. Because most of the time, when there has been progress, when there has been some sort of struggle, there's been a price to pay. There's been casualties. So what do you think about that?
Let me say one thing. The question that black people have to answer, and first of all, Farrakhan isn't a leader of black people. He's a leader of the Nation of Islam, which represents a certain segment of the African American population. That's a very different thing than call him a black leader. So let's just back away from that for a second. But the thing that I will say is this. I think black people have to ask them a question. Is Farrakhan a vehicle for black anger, or is he a vehicle for the kind of change that needs to happen in black America? I see him as just a vehicle for black anger. He in terms of giving fiery speeches, but having no plan in terms of how we are going to reform the political system. You forget that Martin Luther King Jr. had the Voting Rights Act. They had a plan. There was a plan even before that. When Ida B. Wells Barnett was doing her thing, we got eventually some anti-lynching legislation. There was a plan. But let me just say this about violence. I used to, I used to kind of, say to myself, well, maybe that's what needs to happen in order for change to happen. We need to have like this violent revolt. But what I saw over the last few years, we just saw Greece. People were in the street in mass in Greece. We saw Greece. We saw the Arab Spring, from Iran to Egypt, people in the streets. We saw even in London, people in the streets, people in mass in the streets going out against their government. Tell me what is happening in Greece right now. What I am faced with is that the Greeks were in the street, they elected a leftist president and they got screwed. What happened in the Arab Spring is that the Arab Spring really didn't cause the kind of transformation that those people thought it was going to cause. You really think those people were standing out in front of tanks? That's how badass they were. And I'm not saying it's just like it was, but we didn't see that sort of transformation. So what I'm saying is that take a step back, black people, and let's first of all, if that's something you want to do, let's have a plan. But let's also understand that doesn't always work. And I'm not saying if Farrakhan doesn't have to be in front of the bullet to make it happen. But let's understand that Farrakhan has been in this. Farrakhan has been the head of the Nation of Islam for a long time. He's been the head of the Nation of Islam for years. He was able-bodied to do that a long time ago, and that's not what happened. And he could still put his people. He's in charge of the Nation of Islam. Just because you, as an 80-something-year-old man, are not going to make that happen, you still control these guys. These are your soldiers right here. What are you telling me? You're looking for 10,000 soldiers and you have the Nation of Islam right there with you. They guard you. They guard your home. They guard you. If this is what you want, then then you need to start making that happen. But I will not follow anyone into battle who is not sending their own soldiers. So I want to know, who are you sending? What are you doing? You know what I mean? That's what I want to know. Those are the questions that I want answered. Don't just come to me with fiery rhetoric. I don't want to hear fiery rhetoric. I've had enough people who were telling me how awful there's not a black person in America that doesn't know what black people face in America, other than maybe, like the people on the far right. We all know that. I don't need the rhetoric. What black people need is a plan. And if you don't have a plan, I just don't understand what you're offering to black people if there's not a plan.
Well, what I'll say, and this is something that I think anybody watching who's familiar with Farrakhan should comment on this as well. I don't think that it would be necessarily right to say that Farrakhan is a person that does not have a plan. I know that I sat at a table with him for literally 9 straight hours, and all we did was plan. Now, it was an economic plan, but we were planning. There were 8 of us, 10 of us at the table, so there are lots of plans that they do put together. I don't know how. But
what I'm saying is, what is the plan for this rise up and kill those who kill us? What is the plan for that?
That part I don't know. I can say though that I don't see the Nation of Islam as just a group of cowards who just do this, do nothing but talk.
I never said that. Never said that.
But my disposition, what I've seen is that they're not necessarily ones who are going to start a confrontation, but you don't want to start a confrontation with them, right? Meaning physical. I don't think you can just run up on any black person with members of the nation around without them sort of dealing with you. Now, what you're saying though, when you're talking about that whole stalk them, find them, and kill them, I think that is a whole different level of aggression, right? That goes beyond self-defense. That goes into finding the fight. Just like the war on terror, how they said we're not just going to defend the country, we're going to go around the world and chase them down and find them. And I think that's the part I think we would want more clarity on. But I will say that again, just giving defense to the minister in a lot of this, and then I can't wait to hear back from their people. Just so you know, Yvette, I got another email from somebody telling me that the Final Call, the Nation of Islam newspaper, that they're investigating your video. I don't know what investigating means. But I think it's a worthy conversation. I think. Let
me just say, I don't even like, to talk about this. But when you're talking to me, and I understand that people change and people grow, but let's just since they're investigating me, let's just throw it out on the table, shall we? In the 1990 interview with the conservative Spotlight magazine, Farrakhan said he told the editors of this conservative rag, well, you may not want to live beside these black people and African Americans, because they don't know how to behave. But I know how to behave, and I keep my yard clean, and you wouldn't mind living next to me. You wouldn't want your kids to go and necessarily, you go through the ghetto and see how these black people live. You wouldn't want your daughter, of course, marrying one of them, would you? You know what I mean? This is stuff that he has said. This is on record. And if you don't believe me, it's all footnoted in Dr. Adolph Reed's book, Class Notes. These are things that he has said. And when you talk about black respectability politics, when you talk about his plans, part of Farrakhan's plan is that, black people need to be elsewhere, that we weren't ready after slavery. We need to be kind of taught how to be respectable and taught how to, that is something that he has said. He's quoted as saying that during that Spotlight interview. So if you're investigating me, I'm not the one who said these kinds of things. So it's amazing that people would be investigating me for like hatred of black people or something. No, I'm actually defending black people. I'm saying there's nothing wrong with us. Like there's nothing wrong with us that white supremacy wouldn't cure. There's nothing wrong with us. So I think the problem is that I think for me and Farrakhan have some differences. I consider Farrakhan is a conservative. I'm not a conservative. You know what I mean? So we have some ideological differences. Farrakhan believes, just like white conservatives believes, that, you should kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps and take care of your own business, and the government shouldn't be a part of your life. I don't believe that. I believe that the government bails out banks, and the government bails out agriculture, big ag. I believe that the government takes care of all sorts of people. So I don't have any problem with the government giving us back what they took away from us. So we have different ideologies, which is part of the reason that we disagree. So let's just first of all understand that Farrakhan and I aren't on the same ideological spectrum.
Well, it's interesting that you frame it in the liberal conservative divide as well. I mean, and I think that that's very real. You're more liberal than I am,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that what that does is, if you have a liberal person that loves black people and a conservative person that loves black people, they're going to have two different plans to achieve the same objective, right? And now this quote that you mentioned that Farrakhan stated about certain black people living in ways that they shouldn't live. I would definitely want to see that quote to really understand it exactly. But my interpretation, based on just what I've seen, publicly and privately, is that I think that there is an expectation that just like the 70 Million Man March, and I think that's an interesting thing to bring up as well. The Million Man March to me was a necessary call for black men to just rise to the occasion. It doesn't mean that discrimination is not real. We have to acknowledge it. You can't talk about America without talking about racism. But to the extent that white people will never stop being racist, and given that your situation, it is what it is. It's not what your situation is not what you want it to be. It is what it is. So, given that is true, that means that while the world may be unfair to you, while the world may be mistreating you, there are things that you can do through sheer determination to elevate your situation, to make your life better. So what I've admired about the nation, for example, is the way they can take a black man who has been incarcerated, been under the oppression of the criminal justice system, and they tell him, well, that is not, what you've gone through has been horrible, but that's not an excuse for you to not learn how to read. It's not an excuse for you to not dress in a respectable manner. It's not an excuse for you to disrespect women. It's not an excuse for you to be a weak and cowardly man. We're going to find a way to build you back up. Now, they build you up in the framework that they deem to be most beneficial, right? I mean, it's fine. It's a little more conservative than most people, but at the same time, to me, that is a better objective, at least in the short term, than sort of saying, well, you're fine the way you are. It's white people who did this to you. We all know white people did it to him, but if you leave that black man on the corner, smoking crack, beating women, and disrespecting himself and his community, and you just say, well, the white man did it, so it's okay, that's a problem. I don't think that calling for people to better themselves is somehow saying racism is not real. Does that make sense?
No. Nobody. Listen. Here's the thing, and this is why people always say, "Oh my God, I can't believe Farrakhan hasn't gotten killed." Farrakhan hasn't gotten killed. Listen, Farrakhan is not a threat to white supremacy. The government of America, the racist elites who determine how everything goes and who gets taken out and who gets sent overseas like Assata Shakur or who gets assassinated like the Black Panthers. The way they decide that is, are you challenging the system? They don't care. Like the Million Man March was, well, you know, if people had a good, if people enjoyed it and felt some kind of spiritual moment, fine. But the truth of the matter is, the Million Man March did not challenge the state. The Million Man March did not challenge the distribution, you know, of tax dollars in this country. The Million Man March did not challenge this government to give back what they have taken from black people over these centuries that we've been here. And until you challenge that, you are not a threat to the government. What the Million Man March did was bring black men to Washington, D.C. and told those black men, and the black men, Farrakhan told those black men they have to do better. Republicans, racists don't care if black people tell each other you got to do better because they believe that you ain't worth shit anyway. And they tell you that to your face anyway. So they don't care about that. So what if you're not challenging this government and the way this government doles out money, if you're not for a redistributive, you know, sort of, if you're not for a redistributive mechanism in terms of how the government gives out dollars and redistributes money to people who have been robbed throughout this country, then the government doesn't care. You're not a threat. So no, Farrakhan has never been a threat. The Million Man March wasn't a threat. We didn't even, I mean, the Million Man March was not a threat to the system at all. I mean, I would bet you dimes to dollars there were white people, racist white people in their house, in there drinking scotch saying, yeah, I've been saying for a long time them niggas need to do better. They've been doing, you know, but they don't, but it's unbalanced because all you do, you talk about how we need to do better, but when it comes time to take on the system, where is that? Well, then Farrakhan says, well, no, we don't need to take on the system. We need to leave the system. That's not realistic. We're here now. We are citizens. We are fully vested citizens, and we help build this country, and we're not going anywhere, and we shouldn't go anywhere.
Well, you know, I think that there's a scenario where you can be correct, and those who disagree with you can be correct. In that, even if you think about Martin and Malcolm kind of being upset because Martin was taking an approach that different from his own, I think you know, anybody could realize that they help each other, right? You know, just similar to the simple good cop bad cop approach. When you know, it's easier for the Negro sitting at the negotiating table to get things done when when there's another black person standing outside with a shotgun, right? I think that just the idea of what I like about what the minister might say is it's basically kind of reminding black people, especially men. As a man, I probably am more affected by the message. As a father, as a protector of people I love, that message resonates with me in that you can't be a punk. You can't let people walk all over you. I'm not going to sit around waiting for white people to stop being racist. If you treat me and the people I love in a certain way, I'm going to fight you, even if it means I lose everything. Because for some of us, you know, losing that dignity, that consistent batter ram of oppression can lead to something worse than death. You know, and I feel this every time I walk down the streets of Chicago and I just see, you know, black men on the corner asking for money and just so many of our people just downtrodden, just beaten down so badly by racism. I'm not waiting for no white liberals to come save me. I can't do that. But at the same time, I respect what they're doing. You know, it's like if you're doing the right thing, you're doing Black Lives Matter, and you're in Congress pushing for legislation. I support that. But you know what? If those same racist people that you're negotiating with put too much pressure on the people I love, then I will retaliate. I will respond. You know, so I would say that maybe it's a matter of you not necessarily ever agreeing with Farrakhan's approach to anything, but just kind of saying, okay, he's over there doing his thing, he's pushing his message, I'm going to push mine. But I think, but at the same time, I'm glad you said what you said because it almost sounds like you also sort of, I think, share some ideas that should be considered just for the general safety of people. Look, if you're going to take a risk, it's like in finance. What they used to teach us is that there's a difference between taking a silly risk and a calculated risk. A silly risk is when you go into battle without a plan, right? That's an unnecessary risk. That's inefficient. A calculated risk is when you plan and then you go to battle. Either way, you might die, but at least you're only putting your life on the line with a clear strategy in mind. So I don't think that I'm gonna ask you this, and I'll let you get the last word. Do you think that Black America is better off with the existence of Farrakhan? Like, do you think that we'd be better off if there just was no Farrakhan, it was no Nation of Islam.
Well,
What do you
you
think?
know,
You think we got out
I
because of
mean,
Farrakhan and the Nation?
I have to be bluntly honest and separate Farrakhan from the nation. I mean, I'm not saying that we would be worse off with the nation. I think the nation has done some good things in terms of, especially like, you know, giving black people, black men, I would say, especially of family, especially men who were incarcerated and that sort of thing. You know, if you're gonna ask me about Farrakhan, I can't see Farrakhan without knowing that Malcolm X is no longer here. And Farrakhan admitted during a 60 Minutes interview that although, you know, he didn't, you know, nobody's saying that Farrakhan killed Malcolm X, but that his rhetoric, that his fiery rhetoric may have contributed, you know, to that happening. And he admitted as much. And what I'm saying is, since Farrakhan has a history of fiery rhetoric, let's just be careful. Like even when we did stuff, we talked about movements and plans, right? When we had the bus boycott, when they had the bus boycott, and when they had Montgomery and all the stuff in the civil rights movement, what you also had was people raising bail money. What you also had was a bunch of attorneys who were on deck to deal with this and to help get black people out of jail when they did these things. Before you start calling on people to do this, that, and the other thing, I would like to see a plan, and I would like to see more. I would like to see a plan for how that specific thing is going to happen, not an economic plan. If you get out and say let's stalk and kill people, have a specific plan for exactly what we're doing. Is this going to be guerrilla warfare? Are you going to help this kid out when he gets locked up? Are you going to provide bail money if he gets bail? Is he going to get counsel that's paid for by the Nation of Islam, or are you going to start a maybe a fund me thing where you accept money? You know what I mean, and you to help pay for stuff and you put your own funds in as well. Like, I don't see a plan. I just see rhetoric in terms of this thing. I'm not talking about in terms of the history forever and ever, but in terms of this stalking down people and killing police officers, I don't see a plan. I see rhetoric. And I just have to wonder also whether this is sort of Farrakhan trying to take advantage of sort of this Black Lives Matter energy and trying to use it to like rebrand himself in terms of where he's going and, you know, relevancy and that sort of thing. And I just, you know, when I watched the speech, it really gave me chill bumps in terms of what that might inspire someone to do and how that could ruin someone's life because there's not a plan, at least as far as I know, for what happens next.
Well, it sounds like you want to see a plan, and I think that's. You said the word plan a lot, and I think that's reasonable. I would like to see that plan too, and and I encourage anybody who's watching to leave your comments as well. I think this will open up a good discussion. A lot of people should participate in this, and I want to say thanks, Yvette, for being so honest. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. You know it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, this troublemaker on the line with me, at breakingbrown.com, and you should go check out her site. Support and make a donation. Even if you disagree with her, just appreciate the fact that she's honest with you. She's going to tell you what she thinks.
And appreciate the fact that Breaking Brown publishes more articles about black people, black women, and black men being mistreated than so many other publications. So it's very, there's no reason for you to judge me by one thing that you may disagree with. That doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. I've had people even try to say, "Oh, she's an Uncle Tom." I'm like, man, please. This woman has done more than you'll ever do in your life. So let's just stop all that. Stop trying to label somebody because you disagree with them. If you disagree, just disagree, and I'm not gonna get mad at you for that. But don't come in here telling no lies. But I think the fact that Breaking Brown got over, last I checked, it had over 1 million hits last month. So
yep.
A lot of people agree with you. A lot of people they don't agree with you per se all the time, but they agree with the idea of freedom of thought, and that's the goal: freedom of thought. So that's it. All right, everybody. Once again, this is Miss Yvette Cornell from BreakingBrown.com. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. Until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated.